Hi, and welcome to another episode of Disaster Empire Quick Views, where we talk to innovative thought leaders in resilience. And I am thrilled to have Jackie Falla with us here today, not least of which because she got me started on the podcast journey. So thank you. It's really great to have you here, Jackie, and talk to you again. I really would love for you to talk to the audience about commercial real estate, resilience, and the pandemic. And so I'm going to throw it over to Jackie and let her share a brief bio with all of you who haven't met her yet. Hi, Jackie. Welcome.
Good morning, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me here. I think you may not know that I started my podcasting journey with you as well. You were one of my very first guests. So I so appreciate you putting your trust in me. So as you said, I'm Jackie Falla. I am the Director of Client Services for Elaine Construction. We are a women-owned commercial construction company, so I think I am well positioned to talk about commercial real estate with you this morning. And because I can never get enough of design and the built world, in my free time, I flip houses. And I am writing a book about it called Sawdust to Gold, A Gal's Guide to Building Wealth Through Real Estate. Nice. And if anybody is interested, they can follow my journey on Quest for the Nest.
Excellent. We'll actually put that info down below.
Absolutely.
So people can find you. Excellent. So exciting.
So I'm thrilled to dive into the conversation with you this morning.
So am I, and it's really great to have you here. So diving in, it's, no surprise to anyone that sadly commercial real estate did take a big hit from the pandemic. And can you share what that experience was like from your perspective?
Absolutely. So as a builder, we do have a different perspective on what the pandemic did to our world. We are an occupier ourselves of commercial real estate. We did buy our own building during the pandemic, and we underwent a renovation and then a move to our new location, which was pretty exciting.
Wow.
Because we were growing like crazy. But like most people, at the very beginning of the pandemic, we were not deemed essential employees because we work in the private sector realm. So no public work for us at Elaine Construction. And so that limited what we were able to do in those first 10 weeks. So we were at home. And as it relates to how it impacted me, I did not do well at home alone. I am not the kind of person. I would have always said, listen, I love being alone. I am happy with my own company, but my energy really comes from being around others. And and that was a good learning process for me. Yeah. So fortunately, we were able to come back after that 10-week period. And all of the things that people continue to talk about today, whether that's hybrid work, whether that's, A teams and B teams, or in a couple of days a week, we experienced and played with all of those things. But now we're back to work full time. And in part, that is because our superintendents do not have a choice about where they work. And we're in solidarity with them. So that's how we as a company experienced it on a very personal level. But from a business perspective, roughly half of our work comes from the commercial sector, corporate tenant interior fit outs.
Right.
And so what we saw there, Ashley, wasn't as dire as what you hear on the news. We saw a small dip in the percentage of work we do on the corporate or commercial side of our business. The other 50% being associated primarily with higher education institutions. And they're just building like crazy. They had a huge backlog. and they appear to be making up for it in the very best possible way.
That's
So
great to hear.
it is. And so that really backfilled that little dip on the commercial real estate side.
Yeah.
We continue to see loads of activity. Sometimes that activity is in a densification of space. So people saying, geez, we don't have folks in the office in the same capacity that we used to. We're going to either reconfigure space so that there's more collaboration and less dedicated, desk area. Or we're going to give up space entirely and, to take this opportunity to move because commercial real estate is so expensive, particularly in the cities of Boston and Cambridge and our surrounding area. So that doesn't stop the need for us as builders. And we can talk a little bit later in our conversation about, what the implications of this back to office looks like if you're interested in that.
We'd love to do that, and I'm sure my audience is as well. Thank you for those insights, and it's really great to hear one that Elaine Construction continued through the pandemic, and that you're seeing such an amazing recovery right now. So I think great news for folks in your industry. And also good for us to hear as practitioners, as we're thinking about a changing landscape of people working from home, maybe virtual completely at this point, but also those who are going back into the office, as you said, especially for those collaborative engagements. So, hey, I wanted to ask you a question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, how do you define resilience?
So I think of it probably I think it's a little bit funny, but if anybody is a cook in the audience and they use one of those hard rubber cutting boards that are quote unquote self-healing, or if you're super technical and into construction innovation, you might have heard of self-healing concrete.
Ooh, I have not. Cool.
Self-healing concrete is a really cool new innovation, but interestingly is based on ancient Roman construction. So we can talk about that in an entirely different podcast.
Sounds great.
But it is our ability to self-repair, I think is pretty amazing as human beings. And we don't think of ourselves as being that way. A lot of times when something like a pandemic happens, we think of ourselves as being broken or fragile or, never getting back to whole again or normal again. And I would like to say I don't feel that that's true. I think that we have a tremendous capacity to recover and reboot. And this pandemic has actually taught me a lot about our ability to do that. We assess the situation. I'm not saying that we don't have setbacks as a result of it. Of course we do. But I actually think we can become stronger, more informed. We have the ability to pivot and adapt. And I think that we actually showed that we did that beautifully during the pandemic.
Yeah. Hey, can you also share and just keep going on that theme in terms of what's happening now as commercial real estate is, I would say, in that recovery phase from the challenges that were faced during the pandemic? What are you seeing in the industry?
Sure. So, what I'm seeing in the industry right now, Ashley, is a lot of uncertainty. Okay. And the uncertainty comes from a lot of different directions. So some of them are geopolitical. We're watching, the pandemic spike in China again, and the way they handled the pandemic might have contributed to this spike that we're seeing now. They handled it very differently than we did, with mass vaccinations and a huge educational campaign. They handled it with a lockdown. And so if our listeners remember, in the summer of 2020, when we started to go out again, a lot of people, when they were unmasked for that short period of time, got colds. They got sick, right? Because they were protected from being exposed to any kind of germs or contaminants. And when they were re-exposed, naturally, they got sick. So I think we see a little bit of that. Then we are watching the war in the Ukraine with Russia and what that's doing to our oil prices and to inflation. And we are interestingly also experiencing real labor shortages. So unemployment is very low still. All of these factors are outside pressures on this back to work question, right? And the back to work question is really what's at the heart of what's happening with commercial real estate today.
Definitely.
Right? This is Jackie Falla speaking here. What I think is going to happen are a couple of things. Employment is a privilege. And sometimes we forget that. You know, we think about the me rather than the bigger we. Right. And what's good for me might not be good for the company, the business, or the organization, right? Yeah. For their ability to thrive and profit and continue to provide good jobs, good benefits, good opportunities for people. And the employee has largely been in a position of power or control these last few years. I think we're going to see a shift in that for a number of different reasons. I would say that one of those reasons is the digital revolution that we're in. Granted, we're at the very beginning of it, Ashley, but we're going to see jobs go away and be replaced with automation. You know, people will have to upskill accordingly. They will have to find ways to bring value to their company and organization, which may not come from working at home. Now, that might not be true for every single position, every role, but I do think it's important for people to start to think as we prepare for perhaps what looks like a little bit of an economic downturn. Right. Certainly here, maybe greater impacts across our nation. Understanding how you bring value to your organization is critically important. And if you want, as Jamie Dimon from JP Morgan Chase would say, to have a job, go ahead and work from home. If you want to have a career, get back to the office. Your ability to understand the political landscape of your organization is critical to your ability to rise up through the ranks. That kind of peripheral learning that happens inside the office can't happen over a Zoom call. And we also have a responsibility to our company to teach. We teach up and down and on either side of us, and we also learn in that same way. And again, that can't happen from home. Sure, it's nice to be able to throw in a load of laundry or go to the gym in the morning and, you know, replace that with a commute. But ultimately, we need to think more holistically about this ecosystem of what makes everything work. And it's a give and take. It's not all give to me. That's going to eventually impact the health and well-being of businesses, and the businesses are in this commercial real estate, and they won't be able to afford to be there if no employees are there. So that's a long response to your question about what I see happening there. But I think that we're a little bit of we're still on the cusp of what's going to happen, and I do think it will happen. And what I think we're going to start to see, unfortunately, is some businesses really starting to fail and flounder. We've been flying the plane off of 2019 fuel, and it ran out about a year ago. And that momentum that's been carrying us is going to start to drop precipitously. And that's going to be the inflection point where people start to realize that their jobs are in jeopardy and that they're going to have to make a change.
Jackie, you and I had an interesting conversation the other day. So I was wondering if you could share some of the learnings that you are hearing from engagements that you're having with experts and, leaders in the field in this space, because I think that my audience as practitioners would be interested to hear some of the data that you're learning that's coming out that supports this. So, because I know all of us are seeing many different things. So I really, if you don't mind sharing, but really love to hear your perspective, what you're hearing from MIT and others in terms of that, return to the workplace and engagement and how that adds value to companies overall.
Absolutely. Yes, I have been privileged to be in and around some amazing scientists and researchers and innovators, both because I do a lot of higher education work here in the Boston and Cambridge area,
right.
And because I sit on the executive board of Cornet, which is a commercial real estate organization. I would say the premier one in the city of Boston. And we had a visioning session to close out the year with some really, really incredible thought leaders. Among them was a gentleman out of MIT's Sensible Lab. His name is Paolo Santi. And Paolo is doing some specific research called proximate. And proximate, if you think about your approximate location or connection to other people, it will resonate, I think.
Yeah.
It's about just
Makes
that.
sense.
So while his research is incredibly detailed and complicated, I think I can simplify it by talking about something that our listeners may have heard of before, which is Dunbar's law. So Dunbar talked about the human capacity to have a network of people around you, and what that number is. How many people can you know? Can you be connected to? Can you have in your periphery that's meaningful? His number was 150. Well, Paolo's research through the Sensible Lab is similar to that in that he was finding that the network of people inside academic communities is similar. It's about 150. And what we call weak connections, those people that are furthest from our day-to-day worlds.
In our network, but
yeah, they're in our network, but maybe we connect with them actually once or twice a year, for instance, okay? On a college campus, that happens, similarly, you might walk across campus and you stop and chat with somebody that you haven't seen in 3 or 4 months, and you catch up on what they're doing. And all of a sudden, a light goes off in your head. They're working on that thing. That's interesting. It could impact what I'm doing. And that's where the innovation happens. It doesn't necessarily happen with that team that you work with day to day.
Yeah.
it happens with those weak or loose connections. And we're losing ground
insight
there. So that type of research that's happening is validating, business owners' concerns that it's not just about culture, it's about learning, it's about innovation, it's about what those next big ideas or projects that people are going to work on, where will they come from? And, if the only person you have to collaborate with is a dog and two cats, it could be really challenging to innovation and to moving the business forward.
Yeah.
So Paulo's work is really, really interesting and validating. And there were some other really interesting thought leaders that were present there as well, that said, the question of the validity of cities is a cyclical question. It comes around, every 10 years or so. Are cities good? Are cities bad? It could be generational. People move out to the suburbs, but then they come back to cities. Cities are always going to be around. They are vibrant places of intense knowledge bases, of industry, of theater and arts and culture. You can't have that in every suburban community. And that's why cities thrive. And our cities, Ashley, are not devoid of people right now, by the way. Yeah. What people aren't saying is we don't like a city. They're here going to, the Celtics games and to all of the restaurants and availing them.
The traffic's back.
Traffic is terrible. So, and that's a problem that we discussed as well. To be a world-class city, our transportation system has to get more efficient. It does. And I know we're working on it. But it's painful in the meantime. It's painful.
It's part of what drove me out. But hey, talking about the pandemic and commercial real estate, and I don't want to belabor the point, but I saw a great deal of agility and plasticity in, facilities, professionals, construction professionals. And so I just wanted to give you all a shout out because, I saw it from an observational view, right? And working closely with colleagues. So what do you think really enabled our colleagues out there to take that posture? Because I saw all of you just jump right in and pivot, and it really was amazing to see.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I, of course, have a great love for construction workers who did continue to go to work under some pretty extreme conditions. And of course, all of our healthcare workers in the community and, our police forces and fire professionals. What would we have done without them, Ashley? Yeah. I mean, they did not have a choice.
Yeah.
And when I think about our facilities professionals, they are in fact essential too. How did they do it? I think is at the heart of your question. Those professionals are used to being in crisis situations. That is at the very nature of their work. And they must make it work despite really, really challenging conditions.
Yeah.
And, while a facilities management professional may not be saving somebody's life in the immediate sense, they do, in fact, keep buildings safe to ensure the health and well-being of the people that come to them. And buildings can't just be mothballed. I think that's an idea that people have. But if you've ever, say, had a summer home that you only came to in, mid-June, and on Labor Day, you closed it up for the winter. And when you return, you see it's musty and the lines need to be flushed and there's spiders and maybe a mouse or a raccoon got in there.
Yeah.
Leaving buildings alone doesn't mean that Mother Nature and Legionnaire's disease and all of these other things don't happen to them. So facilities management professionals have to attend to those buildings. They did not stop working.
They really
were
stepped
in there.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, they were in there every single day because they had to be. They had to be to keep all of us safe. So, anybody that was deemed an essential worker continued to work.
Right.
And they did not, they've been exercising that muscle for the last 2 years. They're accustomed to it. In the way they always had been.
Yeah.
Everybody else is out of shape and they need to get back into shape, Ashley.
I can tell you're passionate about this. But hey, I know we could talk all day, but I do have to wrap it up. Okay. But I wanted to ask you, is there anything else that you'd like to share with this audience, thinking ahead into the year that you would think would be of interest to them? And then please let us know where people can connect with you.
Sure. So I do think that we're in a pretty exciting time now as it relates to this digital revolution. I think that it does represent a really amazing change that we don't see often. But I do think revolutions will happen much more frequently. We went from agriculture to manufacturing, and now today, ta-da, we're in a digital revolution. So I'd say keep your eye on that. Continue to learn. We have to be lifelong learners, and it represents so many amazing opportunities to adapt your career path in ways that perhaps when you started out of high school or college, you never anticipated. So that's pretty exciting. I also think we're going to see a much more diverse workforce, which is really exciting to me, not just in terms of the colors of the rainbow, but in terms of neurodiverse employees in the workforce, people that are on the autism spectrum, have incredible skills and talents that in a digital revolution we can utilize, and they can become really active and valuable parts of our economic workforce. And I think that we are going to continue to see a little bit of a rocky road. So buckle in, be as adaptable and open-minded as you can. I think it will serve you really, really well. And be kind to one another, help one another. It has been a tough 2 years, and I understand that these changes are not easy for any of us. So take time, but be open-minded.
Thank you.
And then as it relates to getting in touch with me, I'm sure you can put the link in the notes. I'm always happy to continue the conversation with anybody that's interested in it.
Thank you, Jackie. It was great to have you here today on the channel, and we'll definitely make sure to add all of those links below. I want to thank the audience for being here and sharing in this conversation. Always appreciate your support, so please like and share the channel. It's the only way that we can grow. So again, Jackie, thank you so much for being an innovator in this space and taking the time and sharing your perspective with us. It's really great to hear from someone who's in the industry today and looking back at what has happened and then looking forward as well. So I wish you all the success, and I know that the audience is rooting for you and for Elaine Construction as well. Great to hear the bounce back that's already happening. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, it's my honor. Thank you.